Bases dropped on the latest edition of Soccer Down here. It's February 13th. It is a Thursday, which means your hashtag to join the conversation on Twitter is Thursday Thoughts. And these can go anywhere. Look, you want to talk about tactics? Cool. We'll talk about tactics. You want to talk about preseason preparation? Cool. We can talk about that. You want to talk about high school soccer? We can do that. You want to talk about youth soccer? We can do that. Referee development? Yeah, we can do that too. Wherever you want to go. We'll get into anything you guys want on Twitter today. Tweet at us at Soccer Down here. It's what a Thursday show kind of turns into typically. Jason Longshore, John Nelson with you this morning. And John, I got to start with this question because I've seen this video making the rounds yesterday. So it's a video of guys sitting in the last row of seats on the plane. I don't know if you've seen
I think
this.
I know where you're going, but go ahead. No, I haven't seen it.
He's sitting in the last row of seats on the plane, and woman in front of him reclines her seat, and she takes the video of him, like, doing a speed bag, essentially, not super hard, but still punching the back of the seat as she had reclined it back into him. Thoughts on this in general, first off?
Well, if I'm the guy in the last row and I don't have anywhere to go backwards, I'm hoping that the person in front of me understands this and in the context of the plane might pick some kind of a half ground if you're going to recline. There have been times when I've been that person in the next to last row, and knowing the person behind me doesn't have a whole lot of space and it could get a little claustrophobic and trying to actually function back there, I don't recline. And I'll just sit up straight and probably pass out 20 minutes into the flight anyway. So for me, it's not that big a deal. When you're the guy and you're annoyed that the person in front of you has tilted all the way back, I guess, or tilted back to an...
It didn't look like they were all the way back. I mean, they were definitely...
To an inconvenient point, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's put it in quotes.
Yeah, it was far enough back that it was inconvenient. I think that's fair.
So you recline back to an inconvenient point. Usually the step for me, if I'm in that last row, is to politely tap the person on the shoulder or go out from behind my seat and say, hey, can you move up? Can you move up a little bit because I can't do A, B, C, D, or E, here on this flight. And then it's up to that person in front of you to figure out, okay, I'll sit there and slide up a little bit and see if it's okay for you to function, that kind of stuff. But for dude to do a speed bag is a bit much for me. It's like, yeah, I get your point. I think that the speed bag could have been avoided if you had talked to the person in front of you to sit there and say, look, I can't eat, I can't read. I can't.
Maybe he did. We don't know that part. She took the video. She is the recliner, and
yes.
She took the video, so he could have asked, and
he
might not have cared.
Yeah, so this is that part where we're missing context here. And we're getting into the if-thens from, I guess, this moment forward. But to do a speed bag in general is flat-out obnoxious.
Oh, for sure. Here's where I am on this.
All right, so let's hear where you're going on the speed bag part of this. So go for it.
No, the speed bag guy, that's just ridiculous. Even if he asked, and even if the person in front was just flat-out rude and said, I don't care, and reclines back even further, punching the seat in front over and over again is just childish.
You're a 4-year-old at that point.
Look, I'm 6'1", and planes are not exactly comfortable in general because of just my height. And it is what it is. You kind of know what you're getting yourself into. There are things you can do to minimize it. I mean, if I'm going to be on a longer flight, I'm not going to put a bag under the seat in front of me so I can stretch my legs out a little bit and I can kind of, dip down a little bit in the seat. And if somebody does recline, it's still, at least comfortable enough. But I am definitely team no recline. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. I do not ever recline the seat on a normal flight. I don't either. Because I know there's people behind me. I don't want to even do that and inconvenience anybody. I'm team no recline. I'm team wait till you can actually get up and leave instead of pushing in front of people and the plane stops and you jump up and you're running from the back of the plane to block people getting out of their seat. I mean, I'm just think of other people and just relax and it'll be okay.
And I'm the same way. I either get out in sequence, if the folks behind me are sitting there and they're waiting for you to, if you look like you're ready to go and the folks behind you sit there and they see that, then they let you come out. Then, great, I go out and I'm part of the queue in my normal location. And then there are times when, I'm not going to be in a rush, because if I'm not in a rush to get any place, there's no point for me to sit there and, jump in line or whatever and just wait for everybody else, because if everybody else is blowing past you. Yeah.
I just wait till it's my turn, and I always let the people on the other side go first. So, I mean, it's always like, all right, if there's, people on the other side who are ready to go, cool, y'all go ahead, I'll wait. And if there's people over there who are like, no, you go ahead, cool, then that's when I'll go. Otherwise, I'm just going to sit and chill. I do like to be in the back of the plane in general. I like to be sitting in the back of the plane. For some reason, it's a little more comfortable. My ears don't pop quite as much. Just I like it. I know it's going to take a little bit longer to get off the plane. Cool. I just chill and wait.
For me,
but team no recline. That's the key.
Yeah, I'm team no recline as well. But for me, the mere mention of the fact that I'm going to the airport, my ears start to pop voluntarily because I've traveled so much. It is, and I can't explain it, but it's just literally, I'm heading to the airport, I'm going on a plane, before I'm even on the plane and in the air, my ears start to pop voluntarily. And so when I'm in the air on the plane and when I'm on the ground having arrived, my ears have already equalized, my hearing is fine, I don't need gum anymore, those kinds of things. It was just something that started happening a handful of years ago because of all the traveling that I was doing. It's like, all right, ears start popping on the plane, no big deal. And but definitely team no recline, definitely waiting toward the end of the line when it comes to team egress, and, just speed bag boy needs to really take a chill pill. And I was not a fan of that.
Yeah, that was kind of obnoxious. He could have been, drawn into it by bad behavior in front, and he very well likely was, but that still isn't an excuse for it.
No.
You just grin and bear it, even if it is across, country flight, even if you're going to be there for a while, you can find a way to make it work. Anyway, people sometimes just get really weird on planes, and it's really strange.
Okay, so then let me ask you this.
Yes.
Weirdest thing that you've seen on a plane, not necessarily something that's happened to you or that you were a part of, but the weirdest thing that you've seen on a plane.
It hasn't been too much. I mean, sometimes like people letting kids kind of run wild on the plane drives me nuts. My routine, I mean, and I'm pretty much a routine on it. Like, I have my big headphones on. I have music going. I'm reading a book on my phone. That's how my flight goes. Get my bottle of ginger ale. I don't drink ginger ale anywhere but on a plane. It's weird. So I take that with me. I'll get a cup of ice when the attendants come by, and that's pretty much what I do. So I keep it pretty basic on a plane. When things are going wild around me, I can typically zone out and typically not really get too bothered by it, but sometimes you get just craziness with kids running around, which I'm like, okay, it's a condensed space. Could you really figure out a way to handle this a little bit better?
Yes.
I haven't seen it personally, but you always see like the videos of people just like taking their shoes off on a plane.
Okay,
I don't
just
understand
obnoxious.
that at all. I almost wonder when I see the videos, like, okay, somebody has to be doing this for the video, because I've never actually seen it, thankfully. But yeah, it's there's some weird things that do happen. I don't know. I just get baffled by people reclining, and people recline back into me, and If it's a short flight, I don't really worry about it. If I'm not doing anything on the tray table in front of me, it's fine. I don't really worry about it.
Right.
A couple times people have done it where they've almost knocked my bottle of ginger ale over, but it had its cap on, and I just kind of blown away by it. And there might be a little bit of a knee in the back just to create a little bit of space for myself, like not throwing a knee, but just like my legs are here, and yes, you are pushing back into my legs. Do you feel that? Is that uncomfortable?
Yeah, I'll do the knees into the seat thing occasionally. Yeah,
it's like I don't know what else I'm supposed to do here. Like you're sitting on my knees. Could you please move up just a little bit? No speed bag though. That's craziness. No, I mean it's not as bad as I think some people make it out to be. I've gotten a little used to it. It's not comfortable because of my sinuses at times. But, if I do my routine, take care of my stuff, like take a couple Sudafed before I get on the plane and wear my C-bands, which actually really help me. People said different things, like there's, I think, different herbal drops that you can do behind your ear and essential oils and stuff. It's the little C-bands with the little button that pushes just below your wrist. Those are what I wear, and they make a difference, and they help keep me from having bad sinus problems on the plane. So it is what it is, and flying isn't always the most convenient, but man, it's a lot more convenient than taking 12 hours to get somewhere, isn't it?
You ain't kidding. Chris Hutchison says all airline executives should be forced to sit in middle, non-reclining seats on any and all flights they take.
Yes, it does feel like the amount of space is shrinking. I've noticed this in the few years that I've flown consistently. It feels like that space between the seats is getting smaller and smaller.
Just a little smaller.
I guess you're squeezing another row of seats in somewhere. I hope. Otherwise, I don't know why you're trying to torture us. But yeah, that would be nice. I always try to go. I mean, what's your preferred seat? Is it window? Is it aisle? I know it's not middle.
No, window, because that way I can rest against the fuselage and pass out.
I can't do that. I can't rest against the fuselage.
Yeah, for me, the plane is the only place I can fall asleep during daylight hours. Honest to God. Because I go out, I'm on a plane, I go out during the pre-flight instructions. I mean, I miss the videotape, I miss all the instructions about the seat belts. I'm done. I can go to sleep on a plane like that. But yeah, for me, fuselage, so I don't have to be a part of Team Recline. And then that way I've got that other outlet. I can go that other direction and not worry about reclining or anything like that.
I can't sleep in anything that's moving. So doesn't happen for me. I
think it's the noise of the engine for me that just puts me to sleep.
Nope.
Just the consistency of the engine, just that straight ass hum. Just you sit there and you're like, and I'm done.
Just does not work. So there's your Thursday thoughts on planes. That's what happens on a Thursday occasionally. Let's get caught up. We had an evening show yesterday. If you missed it, we talked about Manuel Castro coming over on loan from Estudiantes de La Plata. He'll be with Atlanta United through June. They have the option to extend it through the end of the season. 24 years old, 27 appearances with Estudiantes, 3 goals. Before that, 2018 was his breakout year with Wanderers in Uruguay. It's where he developed, a club based in Montevideo. He had 11 goals and 6 assists in 2018. In his career with Wanderers, 17 goals, 13 assists in 87 appearances. He's a player that I think as a replacement for Tito Villalba, yes, he checks those boxes. Can he give you the secondary forward kind of play that Tito Villalba gave you? Can he be an option to play up top? Don't know. Haven't really seen him in that spot. And the question with the way the team is played in preseason primarily is, can he give you wing back play in a 3-4-3? And we saw Justin Merrim do this. It looks like Castro has very limited experience playing as a right back, according to Transfermarkt. I'm not sure when that was. It was not at Estudiantes. It would have been earlier in his career. and don't know if it was traditional kind of right back duties or if it was more of a wing back. Merrim made the conversion and did enough defensively in a pretty long stretch last season to be effective. Could Castro be that player? I think Atlanta United will want to see him in that spot to see before they make a decision on extending the loan. I think they'll want to see how versatile can he be. Can he give you time as a wing back? And early in the season with CONCACAF Champions League, and I don't know when he will be available for Atlanta United. We'll get into visa situations here in a minute. I don't know when he'll be able to click in with the group, but with CONCACAF Champions League, with MLS play early, there could be some opportunities where if Brooks Lennon is the primary guy because he's been here from day one in preseason, maybe Castro gets a game to give Lennon a break, but also to take that look as a wing back in the 3-4-3.
And just I guess this is the PSA when it comes to Castro, is that if you get some kind of amazing immediate result, fantastic, great, and tremendous, but don't sit there and put an immediacy in a timetable for him getting acclimated and hopping on the ground and sitting there and going, okay, he's here, therefore. No,
I actually kind of disagree here because he's only here for June. So you got to see what you got.
He's got his studying has to be on the hop. I know.
Yeah, but you got to see what you got. Oh. So I mean, but even from the team perspective, when he's ready, and that's going to be coming in, getting integrated training. He has been training and playing with Estudiantes, so it's not like he's coming in after a long layoff. So fitness will be fine, but you got to see what you have because you have to make a decision on extending the loan first, and we don't know the purchase price and what kind of situation there is with that. But you got to see what you have because you've got him through the end of June. When that transfer window opens, that's when the decision has to be made, or he goes back to Estudiantes. So I agree. I mean, I don't think you're asking him to come in and be a 10-10 player in a few months, 10 goals and 10 assists, but you have to see what you have. So there's pressure on him, and there's pressure, I think, to see what he can be.
Yeah, I'm thinking more along the lines of progression as opposed to immediacy, and that's where I was going with that.
I think it's got to be immediate because if he comes in and starts slow, well, then he might not get that loan extended. And then from the front office perspective, then you've got to figure out, okay, it didn't work here. We can't afford to take the chance, so what other options are we going to have on the wing? Are we going to go get somebody else? So, yeah, there is a little bit of immediacy here. I think in terms of expectation, that's a different conversation. You're not coming in expecting him to be the best player in the league day one, but you need to see enough to extend the loan, first off.
Right. Yes.
And then you need to see enough to, do you keep him or not? That's the next step. So there's definitely some immediate pressure. And if he can play as a wingback, great. We know he can play as a winger. That gives Atlanta a little more flexibility in terms of playing a 4-3-3. It gives you another look. It gives you another option, which is always good. If he hits the ground running, and if he can get back to a little bit more of what you saw at Wanderers as opposed to Estudiantes. Don't know if it's just a change in style of play. Don't know if it's a change in level because the Superliga in Argentina is a higher quality league than the first division in Uruguay. And could he not handle that step up? MLS, I think, is for a club like Estudiantes, I think MLS is comparable. Boca and River are a little step ahead. In Estudiantes, yeah, Atlanta should be at that kind of level. That's what you're looking for. So he's got to come in and win time. It's not going to be handed to him. And again, that's what you're looking for with Atlanta United is you want competition for spots. He's going to increase that. And he's going to be able, you would think, to push for playing time. And that's going to keep everybody on that right side, whether it's Brooks Lennon, whether it's Jake Mulroney pushing for time there. It's going to keep everybody sharpened and playing at their best.
Tafka has, in this conversation, has said, I've heard the purchase option is $3 million. with a raised eyebrow emoji, which seems like a lot for his current stature. I'm thinking he's temporary. He is temporary cover and not a lot else. And Tafka also says he reclines. He's not sorry, and I don't care if the person in front of me reclines.
I don't recline because I don't expect anybody else to recline. I just don't recline. So Tafka, we would have issues. It's okay. It's all right. If you don't recline too much, we wouldn't have big issues. There might just be a harumph you might hear in your ear. That might be it.
No speed bags or possibly knees in the back of the seat as a gentle reminder that someone's
unless you drop the
you.
thing all the way back and hit me with something.
Yeah.
Yes, then I'm going to have some problems. But
yes.
Slight recline, I'm not going to be happy, but no, I'm not going to say anything about it.
Right.
Don't know about this purchase option. With the Rodolfo Pizarro, it's $12 million, it's $20 million. You don't have sources. I have sources. Blah 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 blah. I'm staying out of this nonsense. So it could be $3 million. It could be $1 million. It could be $27 million. I have no idea. Right now, you haven't even seen him play, so I'm not even going to worry about it. $3 million if you signed him to a 3-4 year deal. It's not too crazy with the way things go. You could TAM that, so it is in that kind of situation that you can make it work. And yes, I use TAM because if you want to go discretionary TAM on it, you could in the new CBA. You could also use the new extended GAM. You've got cap space. You could make it work if you like what you see. I don't think it is an unreasonable amount to say, oh, well, it's definitely temporary cover. Could end up being that. But who knows what the purchase option is. And as usual with these things, you have a reserve clause or a purchase option. Doesn't mean you can't negotiate it. Doesn't mean you can't negotiate that number down a little bit and find a way to make it work. So let's see what he can be before you get to that point. But no, I have no idea. I don't know if I really trust any of these prices and options. And I heard this and I heard that. And I'm not even. After the Pizarro stuff has been so funny, and I guess everybody wants to yell at reporters and saying that they don't have right sources anymore, and then reporters want to yell at other reporters. And man, I just throw my hands up. I just want to see how it looks on the field. That's the part I can talk
when
about.
Reporters are yelling at other reporters, that's where you get the deer and the popcorn gift.
No, I don't. It's no fun. I don't like to see that stuff. I just stay out of the way.
That's what I'm saying. It's just like, I'm going to let y'all do it. It's like, I don't know what the number is, don't know what the complete information is, don't know what the complete story is. I'm just going to let you guys sit there and talk.
I will wait and see if a team makes the official announcement. A lot of times they won't, or if there's enough people that are on the same price point, then I'll have a little more belief for it. I just sit back and wait and see what happens.
Pretty much.
Knows.
Nathan Pugh this morning listened to your interview on 92.9.
Yes.
Had a couple of pickup points from said interview.
Okay.
He thinks that Atlanta can excel with defense in Honduras.
Yeah, absolutely.
LAFC just traded away one of their top defenders.
Mm-hmm.
Is MLS 5.0, or whatever iteration we're on now, going to be when serious TAM and DP slots get used on defenders? I'd like to see more emphasis, not Van Dijk or Maguire level investment, obviously.
I don't think that would take it to 4.0, 5.0, whatever the next iteration of MLS is. I think, maybe just increased spending and dramatically increased spending would be that, because then that would give you the opportunity to do it. You have to be real about it. When you have limited space, limited dollars to spend because of a salary cap, because of rules and restrictions, you're going to usually use that money to draw in other things and to make money. And you're going to do that far more often from attacking players. Whether they're going to sell more tickets, they're going to be a player that you could sell down the road, that kind of stuff. It's just more of a, I think, safer investment. When the cap and the spending goes up dramatically, and maybe it's the next CBA, maybe it's after the World Cup when things could potentially get really big, maybe that's when it happens. I don't know. The Zimmerman one is still just absolutely baffling to me because, yeah, it's a great amount that LAFC has received from Nashville. It's a huge trade, up to 1.25 in allocation money. That's great. But is that enough to move a player like this after the transfer window is closed in Europe? There's still some that are open in South America. And to move a player that you didn't plan on doing. You didn't plan on doing this. And John Thorrington told MLSsoccer.com this. It's a great piece by Tom Bogert over at the league website. It wasn't necessarily in our plans, but we always have to evaluate these things. I completely agree with that. These decisions are incredibly hard. I certainly don't ask for empathy because it's hardest as a player. I'm sensitive to that from moving clubs throughout my career. It was an incredibly hard decision, and not just because of what Walker does on the field, but off the field. It should have been, I think, a harder decision because of where LAFC is right now. They were best team in the regular season last year. One of the best teams in MLS history. Not the best because they didn't win. They didn't even get to MLS Cup. So they're not the best team in MLS history. I don't think they can be that. But one of the best, absolutely, because of what they did in the season. They played some of the best soccer we've seen in this league's history. Can't deny any of that. So you've got an expectation now to be better this season, to win MLS Cup. Another supporter shield would be nice, but you've got an expectation to win MLS Cup. And you're in CONCACAF Champions League. And I don't know. I thought LAFC was coming into this with the expectation to win CONCACAF Champions League. That's what I'd heard. That was the way things had been portrayed. But go watch a video that LAFC posted on their YouTube. It's a really good interview. Hercules Gomez is a part of it. Rodolfo Landeros is a part of it. Max Bretos is a part of it. And they're talking about how the MLS teams have grown in a way and where they're competing with Liga MX, but they're not there yet is generally the vibe from everybody, which I'm a little surprised is going out on an LAFC YouTube channel. Made it seem like, everybody's excited about LAFC and Leon, but there's not this expectation that LAFC is supposed to win. That video combined with this move, I just wonder what LAFC's goals are in 2020. I mean, if it's just MLS Cup, okay, that's completely fine. They haven't won MLS Cup, so I get that. And if they feel like, all right, this is something that we can make our team better with, we can go out and spend this money and get a better center back than Walker Zimmerman, or we have something better in-house, and I don't think that's the case. I guess, if that's going to help you win MLS Cup, but I thought the ambition was bigger. That was the way it had been portrayed, and that has to affect the decision on his $1.25 million in allocation money enough. I don't think it is. If it was $1.25 million on January 11th, maybe, because then you have more time to use it to bring in a replacement. Getting it now makes it, I think it takes LAFC's chances of winning against Club Leon down, which were already not easy. And maybe that's what changed the calculus. Maybe, honestly, getting that draw, and maybe LAFC said, you know what, we're not the favorites here. We're not expected to do this. We have an opportunity to bring in this money and make our team better in the long run. We're not having the expectation of winning CONCACAF Champions League because we got a tough draw. And now our expectation is we have to win MLS Cup. And this is what can make us better to win MLS Cup. That's the way I'm looking at it, because otherwise I don't know how you can do it. I don't think it's enough money that you can't say no to. And that's the difficult thing about this. Atlanta United had to make some difficult decisions. Leandro Gonzalez-Perez, I think, is as good of a defender as Walker Zimmerman in Major League Soccer. Maybe better. Maybe a better fit for Atlanta United specifically. So they made a deal that they didn't plan on doing either, but they did it a long time ago. And Fernando Meza is a player that they already brought in to make the replacement. And he's been here and trained, and they're ready to go. I don't know. I don't think 1.25 is enough. I really don't. It would have to be an absolute blow-away offer to make the deal when they did. Because everybody has a price. We know that. If Nashville had thrown, and I don't know how much allocation money they have left, but if they had thrown $2 million, $2.5 million, something like that, then yeah, you probably have to do it. And if that does change what your season's going to look like, okay, that's fine. 1.25, I just don't think it's enough. I don't think it's enough to change your season goals, because I think this absolutely changes your season goals. You can't be expected to beat Club Leon now.
No. But why would you put the video out is my first question.
I don't know. It was weird. And I watched it. It's a 20-minute video. It's a cool roundtable discussion just about, where things stand. But I didn't think it looked all that strong for the league and for the club. There was talk about the All-Star game and the excitement of that. There was talk about Carlos Vela and where he stands in Mexico and how he's viewed in Mexico. There was some really interesting discussion. It's a great video. And if it came out from an ESPN or a Fox or a Today NA, cool. It would be a great preview for the season, a great discussion of LAFC and who they are. It just felt like it, in some ways, placed LAFC at a smaller level. It placed MLS at a smaller level than Liga MX. And some of the discussion was trying to say that either that's not the case or that's changing quickly, but the conclusions really felt like, yeah, we're happy to be here in CONCACAF. Yeah, Mexico's better than the United States national team right now, and I would agree with that. Yeah, Liga MX is the clear favorite in the All-Star game, and I don't know. We haven't even seen the teams yet, so I don't know about that. I don't know. It was just it gave me a weird feeling watching it coming from a team account, and I was a little surprised by it. And maybe some of that is because of the way Atlanta United has positioned itself. It's never been secondary to anything. And I thought that's where LAFC was going with it. And this video makes you feel differently. I don't know, maybe there just wasn't that much thought process put into it, and it's just a good discussion that they wanted to put out there, and it makes you think, that's for sure. But I don't know, I think MLS needs to think bigger now. And I think Atlanta's doing that. I think Miami's doing that. I think the time to be secondary, it's got to stop. It's never going to change unless you change the mindset. If the mindset and the way you discuss yourself is always, well, Club America, well, Monterrey, well, Leon, well, Liga MX is over here, it's really good, then, how does it change? Outside of just flat out winning CONCACAF Champions League and enforcing the perception to change, yeah, that does need to happen, don't get me wrong, but I don't think in any way diminishing your product helps.
Why temper expectations? If you want to be,
it's not that clear, John. I want you to be. I don't want you to go down the road here because you haven't seen the video. I
No.
don't want you to say things that might not be the case. It felt much more subtle.
Okay,
but I'm also really sensitive to it, and I've had these conversations and borderline arguments about it before. Right now, yes, Liga MX is a better league than MLS, but MLS's goal should be to be better. And to be better, you can't admit that you're worse publicly. Like, you just can't do that. Privately, yeah, you're like, okay, they've got more talent, they're developing more talent, we've got to do that. And I think part of the conversation, and Herc and Landeros, I think, were on this part of it, when they had the press conference about the All-Star game. Enrique Bonilla, the president of Liga MX, was pretty bold in saying, no, we're going to win. We're here to win. We want to come in and, celebrate MLS's 25th year by beating them and wiping the floor with them. And not in a disrespectful way. It was in a competitive way, which is what you need to sell the game. That's cool. But they talked about how Bonilla, and go back to Leagues Cup and other parts of this partnership, and they all love the partnership between the two leagues. They talk about how Bonilla's attitude is, we want to beat them in everything. And they know in some business metrics, and now with Pizarro leaving for the league, Polito leaving for the league, Cavallini leaving for the league, Zelarayan leaving for the league, they know that, hey, things are starting to change pretty fast. Mexico still has the soccer culture that is ingrained, and that's always going to be difficult for MLS to replicate. You don't have the NFL in the same way. You don't have Major League Baseball in the same way. You don't have the NBA in the same way. You don't have the National Hockey League really much at all in Mexico affecting the sporting culture. That's going to be hard for MLS. And that affects how players develop. That affects a lot of things. But on the business side, man, things are changing pretty quick. Carlos Vela did not come back from Europe to go play in Mexico. He came to Los Angeles. Chicharito, same. These are a little bit of a kick in the teeth to Liga MX, and they want to beat MLS every opportunity because it's professional pride. That's a good thing. But I just don't like when American, whether it's journalists, whether it's soccer execs, whether it's teams, had this attitude that, we're secondary. You can't be that. And this is something we've gotten into from a big picture standpoint when you look at a country like Argentina. The Argentine Superliga, they know they're not at the same level as La Liga or Serie A or the Premier League. And they celebrate when players move from the Superliga to those leagues. They celebrate their players who are playing in those leagues. And I think that happens here as well. But they don't diminish the quality of the Superliga product on its own. It's known that it's not at those levels. But they also don't say that it's worse than Brazil. They don't say that it's worse than any other league in South America. And they celebrate the quality of the Superliga for what the quality of the Superliga is. It's interesting to watch TIC and how they cover the Superliga and how it's a huge deal, and it's talked about in incredible detail to the point that on Fridays they have wraparound coverage of reserve games that are played on Friday mornings, mostly at like the training grounds of these different teams. They're cutting into reserve games, and they're having shows that are dissecting one game from the weekend of the Superliga, and it's talked about in a way with reverence, and it's talked about in a way with respect. It's not talked about in an unrealistic way that this is a better league than the Premier League, but it's not diminished either. It's almost like a separate universe. I hope that MLS can get to that point, and it's got to start from the teams. It's got to start from the league media, the internal league media like MLS Digital. It's got to start from American soccer journalists, but also you see the vibe from a lot of people who have strong voices in American soccer that, the Premier League's better, or Germany's better, or whatever. It's never gonna change if everybody's telling the public that no, it's better, and not talking about why, and not talking about what's being done to change that. And that's something that I hope that our soccer culture, and I know a lot of people like to yell and point and scream at Alexi Lalas. And look, Alexi says some things that he wants people to point and scream and yell at him. It's not really hiding it too much. But something that he said over the years that I absolutely agree with is the inferiority complex that American soccer has about itself. I hope that it outgrows that at some point. And I hope that it's soon, because you have to be realistic about where American soccer is. Right now, Mexico's a better national team. You want to compare the two leagues, I think it's a very different conversation. But the national teams, Mexico's a better team right now. Mexico is in a very good place in terms of the players that have come through, performances. They are the king of the mountain right now. and the U.S. has to strive to get there. I think it's baby steps, considering how bad it got in the 2018 qualifying run. They've got to at least secure the number 2 spot first before they can start challenging for the number 1. But anyway, that's got to be where you're striving to be. The leagues, I think it's far closer, but MLS teams have to get over the hump. And that was a really important part that Bretos and his crew talked about. It's hard sometimes when MLS teams go into CONCACAF Champions League or Leagues Cup or friendlies with Mexican teams, and they're playing on the road in difficult situations. You know, it's not easy to go into a CONCACAF match, into the Estadio Azteca, into face Chivas in Guadalajara, into Monterrey or Tigres and get results. You've got players who have never experienced anything like that kind of pressure, like that kind of hostility at times, and it shows in the performance. That's something that's got to change. It's okay to say that, yes, these are things that have to get better, but to just consistently put the domestic product down without talking about what needs to happen to change it, just basically saying, yeah, it can never be better, that doesn't help. And I hope that it's something that does change. And look, you've got to convince these people. You know, I can't just sit here and say, like, you need to change your opinion. Like, the league, the teams, the federation, all of it, you have to convince these people that things are changing. I just hope that people are open-minded enough to do it. And one way that you convince people that things are changing is you don't position yourself as inferior. And this video, it was not direct. It was not in any way saying, yeah, we got no chance. We're just happy to go to Leon. Like, yeah, it's all good. But the video combined with the trade of Zimmerman, it's just kind of like, man, are they just punting on Champions League? I didn't expect LAFC to do that. I really did not expect them to be the team that would do that. Seattle, maybe it's a little more clear that they're looking long haul here because their signings have been late. They've talked about not signing guys. They are really changing over that team. You know, I think it was a little more obvious that they were going to punt, and they've done that before. LAFC, I don't know. I thought it was different, but maybe it's not. And if that's the case, that's the case. I'm glad that you're not getting that sense here. And I know that people were trying to position that early on. That was what was happening. But Atlanta, for the most part, got its deals done early. Now, you can't always control when you bring people in, but you can control a little bit more when you sell guys. And moving Zimmerman on after he's played in preseason for you, you've planned on it, moving him on a week before the first CONCACAF game is wow. That's a surprising one to me. So, and then that combined with this video that it just gave the vibe that it's more of happy to be here and we don't really have a chance, but we're excited about it. You know, we hope that we do well, but it's more hopeful rather than, yeah, we're going to go in and we're going to try to beat the best team in Mexico over the last couple of years in the regular season. I don't know. It just gave me a weird feeling. And I think more teams need to approach it from a position of, we are going to be the best. Does that mean you always get there? No, you can't guarantee anything, but it means you're going to try to. And it means your moves are going to point you to that direction. You have to recycle the squad sometimes. Sometimes you have to sell because the price is too good. All those things are true. I don't think this price is enough that you had to sell at this time. If you got that price in beginning of January, sure. February, I think it needed to be more. I don't know. It's an interesting spot that MLS is in going into this CONCACAF Champions League campaign, isn't it?
Speaking of CONCACAF Champions League, question from Antinio this morning.
Okay.
Jason, a few days ago, you seemed to think Atlanta United should be considered a favorite to get past Motagua. Has that changed at all with the uncertainty with injuries availability and the most recent performance?
No, it shouldn't change. And this is part of that conversation is Motagua is not going to be easy, but I'm sorry, the Honduran league compared to MLS, no. MLS is at a point where their top teams should beat the top teams in Honduras. Upsets happen. We saw it last year with Toronto getting upset by Independiente in Panama. That's an upset. Atlanta should be expected to advance past Motagua. They're a better team. Doesn't mean you disrespect the opponent. Doesn't mean you can't be beat. Doesn't mean that you just show up and walk out and you're handed a win. No, none of that. Don't get me wrong. You're going to have to work for this, and Motagua's going to make it very difficult. But, yes, Atlanta is a far better team than Motagua, and they should take care of business here. Even with injuries, even with everything that has happened in the offseason, even with the potential of Josetu not being available in Honduras, there are things that are going to make it more challenging. But you're a bigger club, and you should be able to handle this. And you should be expected to handle this. And that's the part that we can talk about right now, is that expectation. No, I don't think they should not be considered a favorite against Motagua at all. I think they should be considered the favorite, and they should play like the favorite, and they should expect to advance. Means they have to take care of it. Favorites get upset all the time, but no, they should be considered the favorite.
Also on the board this morning, I'm trying to combine topics here.
Okay.
Make sure that we're still in the same
It's a
in
Thursday.
the same vein.
Things rotate all over the place. That's what we do.
All right. Well, then we'll go to the Colonel's thought, and it goes back to our Nashville discussion over the last couple of days. He says, looking at the economic bloom around the Kansas Speedway and Children's Mercy Park co-location as a model, and reading his piece in the Tennessean, my hashtag Thursday thought is there may be a reasonable method to the Nashville mayor's madness after all.
The Kansas Speedway, and yeah, this is going to get into NASCAR talk, and this is not where I'm really all that comfortable, but the Kansas Speedway is a full, large NASCAR primary series track, correct?
Yes.
It is not a small, potentially 30,000 that would get, the truck series and maybe the secondary series?
That would be my guess. Yes, that
How
was
often
where
do
that
they
would be.
Separate secondary series races from being at the primary series tracks? Because I know a lot of times they do secondary series race like on a Saturday and the primary race on the Sunday.
Yeah, you'll have weekends. Most of the tracks are combined weekends where it'll be trucks either Friday or earlier Saturday. Secondary series will be Saturday night, and the NASCAR race will be Sunday. There are a couple of instances where they do separate just to showcase a track like a Darlington or a Wilkesboro in the past or something like that. Right. But most of the time you get combined weekends.
But you're not going to get the primary series racing in Nashville at the fairgrounds track, right?
That would be how I would lean into the discussion, because it's only a 30,000 seat facility. Lord knows what SMI wants to do, and considering what NASCAR's front office said, that Nashville is a quote-unquote priority for 2021. Lord knows what they're thinking. I mean, you do have races that are like at a Martinsville where it's a paperclip track and it's, a half a mile oval or something like that. But I would anticipate secondary series, truck series, ARCA.
Okay, so maybe they are planning on primary series. In general, now I agree with what the Colonel's saying. In general, if all this was being put together and you're planning on revitalizing the area, sure. If you've got a speedway and you can build it up and do something with a stadium nearby, I do not remember. It's definitely not going to be as close, whatever's in Kansas, for the Kansas Speedway and Children's Mercy Park. They're not literally right next to each other. Unless I just completely missed that. I think they're in the same vicinity, but they're not right next to each other. These would be literally right next to each other.
Right.
You can make that work. I mean, when you combine this stuff, yes, there's a lot of arguments about the true effect of what stadiums, what speedways, what entertainment facilities, do from surrounding businesses and all those kinds of things. I'm not an expert in that field at all. But the fairgrounds, I think, had limited impact to benefit the area around it in its previous configuration. A stadium and an enhanced speedway would, I think, put you in a better position to do that, at least. Bring more events, all those kinds of things. The problem that the mayor is going to have with this is the fact that you have an approved deal on one side, you are holding up an approved deal, and you don't have a proposal on the table on the other. You are running around trying to bring pieces together for it instead of going ahead with the proposed deal. And if it had been handled better, sure, I think you could have found a way early on, and yet remember the politics of Nashville have affected this in a very important way. This mayor came in after the previous mayor had to leave office. There was all kinds of issues with that, both personal and political and criminal. And maybe there's a pushback on anything the previous mayor wanted to do. That, I do think, has an effect on this. But if the mayor had come in and said, hey, we know this was agreed upon, we're going to go forward with this, but we're trying to do this over here, can you help us? Can we work together on it? I think it can benefit everybody, blah, 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 blah. If it had been approached in that way, I think that it would be a very different response. It hasn't been approached in that way. It's been ham-fisted, heavy-handed of, no, we're just not going to move forward on this. The mayor is saying things publicly because the mayor has to, because there's an agreed-upon proposal to move forward with the soccer stadium. If it doesn't happen, lawsuits will be filed immediately. So the mayor's got to say, yes, we're moving forward with the soccer stadium. But he's trying to change the deal that's been approved. And he didn't do it in a collaborative way. That's the problem. And that's where this has turned into now. He didn't do it in a political way. He did it in a way it felt punitive. And it doesn't really look like he's trying to be a partner to the proposal that's already on the ground and approved at all. I think it could have been handled a whole lot better. I understand what the Colonel's saying, and I don't disagree that could an enhanced speedway that's bringing events in and bringing bigger events in, and potentially, especially if NASCAR does continue to shrink, because it is, maybe they do run primary races there. It's a big city. It'd be another market they could do something in. Maybe they do some kind of special race there. Whatever. Okay, that could happen. And that'd be good. It'd be very good for the fairgrounds, be very good for that area. It's also one race. Not going to get multiple races in a year. You're going to get one race. You might get a secondary weekend with other stuff. Maybe you get a couple other races of even more secondary things. How much of a true impact is that going to have versus a stadium that's going to bring you 17 league matches, plus other matches, plus other special events potentially, concerts, et cetera, et cetera? That's not even getting into one being approved and one not. I think it's been handled poorly. If the mayor wanted to do what the Colonel's saying, and I think the mayor's trying to position that that's what he's trying to do, he could have really handled it in a better way. I think he's running the risk of doing a lot of damage to the city by doing it in the way that he's doing. And we don't even know what is on the table in terms of how much would the city be on the hook for to do this speedway enhancement. He went to the state to try to find state money for it, so I'm assuming that if he's going to look for state money, SMI is not putting in all the money to do whatever they want to do at the speedway. They're dangling a carrot. Yeah, we'll come do races. Go fix the facility. And then we'll come do races. Not, we will come in and spend all this money on the facility. You just green light it. And on the soccer stadium, correct me if I'm wrong, the overwhelming majority of the cost, if not all of the cost, is being footed by the ownership group.
Yeah, everything that I have heard, and even in the 3-page letter that John Ingram put out there, when all of this stuff finally came to a head publicly. It was a $335 million facility, and most of that's being footed by Ingram, where back in May, Speedway Motorsports said that, tell you what, we'll spend $60 million to renovate the fairgrounds and bring, and this is the wording that was used, top tier stock car racing.
Okay.
Top tier. Which could
that
mean
makes it more compelling. I mean, it's still vague, but it's a little more compelling than secondary.
So initially, you're looking at. For me, I'm looking at as you are when it comes to Speedway Motorsports coming in. It's like, tell you what, we're thinking of dropping 60, but we're going to need some help here to pull this off. Whereas 9 figures to the left of the decimal, and most of this is being footed by John Ingram and the Nashville SC Group. And for me, much like you in this entire process, it seems like the mayor was working both sides of the table independently and not trying to sit there and have a discussion with Nashville SC about the fairgrounds property, while at the same time trying to court SMI and not including Nashville SC as like, hey, you know what? I'm going to talk to SMI because I want to take this parcel that has the Speedway on it currently, and I want to have both worlds. I want to have the best of both worlds. Hey, guys, what do you think? For me, it just seems that the impression has been Nashville SC has been left out of the process. John Ingram has said so in the letters. And it seems to be, in the words, I like the words that you used, very punitive and very ham-handed, and trying to shove the idea down the throat of everyone that wants Nashville SC to succeed. And I just think that it hasn't been fair to the process. And when you have an agreement that is on the books, hey, this is what we want to do, this is what you're going to do, we as a city agree to making this facility happen, and all of the things that were brought forward to make sure that folks were going to have quality housing, and there was going to be opportunities for employment and all these things. And then all of a sudden, seemingly out of left field, you have this thing from Speedway Motorsports. We want to include NASCAR in on this as well. It just seems like I've had a lot of questions about this ever since this popped up.
It's been a lot of the process that's been frustrating about it. Thanks to Bartimus Prime, Children's Mercy Park is really close to the facility at Kansas Speedway. I did not realize how close it was. I don't know the history of that project and how linked they were as they were both going up. That's something I'd like to go back and look at, because I don't know if they were done together or if one was after the other. I do not remember the story with Kansas City's park. I know it took a while. I know they played at a minor league baseball stadium for a short period of time. And, man, that feels like forever ago in MLS world, and it really wasn't that long ago. Children's Mercy Park's been huge for them, and I don't know the effect overall of the combined area there. It's off of an interstate. I didn't remember a ton of things out there around it, but we'll see. Dig a little bit deeper into that too. But thanks, Bartimus, for the link. We're going to take a quick break, reset for hour number 2 right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here, February 13th. It's a Thursday Thoughts edition of the show, which means it can go off the rails. It can include Speedway talk and aerial views of the Kansas Speedway and the vicinity with Children's Mercy Park in there. So a quick deep dive on it. The Kansas Speedway opened in 2001. Children's Mercy Park was opened first match June of 2011, so 10 years later. So it's a little bit different process of one being built well before the other. Just a couple of things, and John, again, you're the NASCAR guy, not me. Okay. Kansas Speedway, I guess in the last couple of years, the seating has been reduced by a pretty large amount, 64,000 down to 48,000. They currently have 2 NASCAR Cup races and 1 Xfinity Series race. I don't even remember all the sponsors for these. An RV and outdoor, Gander RV and Outdoors Truck Series race, and then ARCA Series race. So 2, 3, 4, 5 races in a year at the Kansas Speedway. I wouldn't expect that Nashville would get 2 Cup Series races, but maybe if NASCAR's now in venues that are reducing, in the 48,000 range, if they get the Fairgrounds Speedway up to 30, which I think was the goal.
Yeah.
I guess you could get a Cup Series race. But these things did happen 10 years apart. So it's a little bit different process for how it happened anyway.
And Kansas Speedway, you're looking at basically 2 weekends a year for these 5 dates to have some kind of economic impact for the region. And I'd love to know what that economic impact is for Kansas City, Kansas, and that particular area. And I know it's a bit apples and oranges here, but I want to know what Children's Mercy does on a year when it comes to, obviously it's more dates. Then you get into ticket price and all this other kind of stuff, and dynamic and economic impact and all that kind of stuff. But for me, you're dealing
too. I mean, when you're doing more events, you have more people on either full time or at least closer to full time, and it does affect that side of it too. It can have a different impact than a special event space.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I would want to look at those numbers, but, once again, you're looking at the owner-operator is, International Speedway Corp. And it's one of the big, it's like one of the big dudes that owns and operates NASCAR tracks. And so it's one of the larger corporations. It's like where you have SMI and ISC. And it's like the Coke and Pepsi, I guess, of NASCAR. But no, I would want to know dates. And we've had the discussion before about how NASCAR is a shrinking violet right now when it comes to sponsors and looking at capacity for Kansas Speedway. That should tell you something really about the initial expectations of what they thought with 64,000 and then trimming it by a third. And now you're at a capacity of 48,000, and where the sport has gone over the last handful of years, where MLS has continued to grow and continues to expand, and and be a part of the footprint. So honestly, for me, I still have more concerns on a daily basis about NASCAR and where it's going, which is trending downward more than any other sport right now.
Yeah, it's just such an expensive sport to do.
$20 million for a fully funded car to run an entire schedule of 39 races. So basically, it's $500,000 a race, a weekend, to have a fully functioning NASCAR team every single year. And God forbid that car break. God forbid that car wreck. If you're one of those if you're a single team owner, like the 7 guys that were trying to get into the Daytona 500 this weekend, if you wreck your car today in the duels, trying to qualify and get a good qualifying spot before you sadly might just start the race and park and get your paycheck and go. But God forbid something happened to you today in the single owner team in one of those dual races where you had to come up with sponsor dollars just to be there, and you may not be in Vegas or Phoenix or Atlanta in a month's time because of something that happened today or this weekend at the race.
Yeah, I mean, that's the difference. Like $20 million for a season is, an MLS salary budget for a lot of teams. But you're not down to one vehicle. If you have an injury, you're able to bring in somebody else and you're able to actually play. You're not going to be forfeiting games and forfeiting revenue because your car broke. So yeah. It's interesting to compare these things. Nashville is just such a crazy process. I do think things get worked out to some degree, and I think mainly because you've got an approved process, agreement, whatever you want to call it. It's done. And if for some reason the mayor goes back on it, refuses to proceed with it, whatever, the lawsuits are going to be so damaging that I just don't think they do it. I just do not think that happens. Does it continue to be contentious? Yeah, absolutely. I think it's not going to be pretty, but I do think Nashville SC will survive and end up being okay through all of this because they got that deal done. And that threat of litigation will be a huge issue for the city to deal with, and I don't think they're in any position to do that. So anyway, we'll continue to follow this. You've got, I think over the next few days, you've got the mayor with public events. You've got MLS and Nashville SC with big public events. I mean, there's going to be a lot of eyes on this situation in Nashville, and I don't know. We'll see what happens. Hopefully Nashville can actually talk about soccer here soon. We do have a question on the table about a report in the Independent from Miguel Delaney. Is that correct?
Yes. As I was about to give you Ricky's comment before we got into the Delaney.
Oh, sorry.
thing.
Go ahead.
Ricky said, seeing all this drama surrounding Nashville SC and the mayor not holding up his end makes me so thankful for the relationship that Arthur Blank and AMBSC have with the mayor's office and the city council here. None of these processes are easy, so we've been really blessed to have the people we've had involved in this. Hashtag Thursday Thoughts.
Yeah, 100%. And you had the previous mayor and the current mayor both be very supportive, and a lot of that is down to what Arthur Blank has done as a corporate citizen of Atlanta. I mean, the thing that Kasim Reed said when the team was announced has always stuck with me about the red phone in my desk goes to Arthur Blank. And he said it joking, but Atlanta has been that kind of city, honestly, in modern times since the advent of Coca-Cola and Robert Woodruff. If you go back through the history of the city and how it's grown, it hasn't been controlled by churches like some cities. It hasn't been controlled by organized crime like some cities. It hasn't been controlled by political groups like some cities. It's been really driven by business. And Coca-Cola was the first major driver of it, but it affected the way the city made decisions. The airport was about business, and that was another huge step for the city to to jump ahead of other cities that honestly were about the same size as Atlanta back in the day, back in the 30s, 40s, 50s. Birmingham, Charlotte, Atlanta was right there with them. And when the airport grew faster than others, when Coca-Cola grew and became an economic driver in the city, Atlanta grew faster than everybody else. Well, after Robert Woodruff and Coca-Cola, and Woodruff, it's a name even if you don't know who he was, it's a name if you are in Atlanta for any period of time, because it's on parks, it's on buildings. There's a lot of things that Robert Woodruff and or Coca-Cola funded that their name's not on it. That was just how they operated. Arthur Blank's been the same kind of person. And whenever the city needed something in the Robert Woodruff days, there might have been a request behind the scenes. There might have been a conversation. Or before it even got to the point that the city needed to ask, Woodruff might have reached out and said, I want to help with this. Let me help with this. Arthur has been that kind of person for the city. So when everything came together for MLS and for Mercedes-Benz Stadium, that's why things were different. Doesn't mean it wasn't smooth and without any controversy, without any difficulty. No. Anytime you're going to do any kind of project of size, it's going to affect things. People are going to be upset by aspects of it. That's just, there's no way around it. Zero way around it. But because Arthur has been a good corporate citizen for the city and has given back to the city in so many different ways, you did not have this situation. And in Nashville, and we've seen it in Miami, and you will see it in other cities. You've seen it plenty for NFL stadiums as well, and baseball stadiums and basketball arenas. It's not just a soccer thing. When people find ways to partner and be good partners, things happen in a much smoother way. When those relationships are not there, then things can be contentious and then can happen like Nashville.
All right, Five Stripe Daily, referencing the Miguel Delaney piece in The Independent about how, the title, How Modern Football Became Broken Beyond Repair. Five Stripe Daily says, don't know if you guys saw this article, but it's a great read on the stagnation of global football due to the crazy resources at the top of most major leagues. Have to feel in this way MLS has an advantage, but money is starting to separate clubs here as well.
Well, stagnation is a bit of a loaded word, because it depends on where you look at that stagnation happening. I don't think it's happening across the board, because you have this interest in, expanding the World Cup because of the interest in the game. You have the interest in an expanded Club World Cup because of the interest in the game. They're not necessarily forced. Like, things are growing to where those things can happen. The stagnation's happening at the lower levels of the professional game, and that's what the article really gets down to. And it's an interesting discussion, because the quote that kicks everything off is, we don't want too many Leicester cities. And according to Delaney, these were the words spoken by a senior figure from the Premier League's Big Six clubs. And the official continued, football history suggests fans like big teams winning. A certain amount of unpredictability is good, but a more democratic league would be bad for business. People have argued this about Major League Soccer, by the way. We'll go back to Alexi Lawless, citing him for the second time this morning. He's talked about super clubs are needed in MLS. It's exactly this reason. Football history suggests fans like big teams winning. I think NFL history suggests that. I think Major League Baseball history suggests that. The NBA definitely suggests that. When big teams are winning, there is more large-scale interest, because that drives large-scale national media, that drives large-scale national TV. And how many times has it been said, if the New York Knicks could only be decent, I mean, they're the most valuable team in the NBA, and they're garbage on the court.
Yep.
If they were winning, it's a whole different conversation. What
college football, Notre Dame and USC.
See, that's different. No, I'm going to leave college football out of this completely, because Notre Dame's not what Notre Dame used to be anymore. I think that's changed. That's completely changed. But the Knicks, if the Knicks put a good team out, and Notre Dame, even when they do have a good season, and they haven't had a season at the top, anytime they get close, people want to get excited about it. So that's true. USC, and I think college football does get more spread around, and maybe the balance of power shifted a little bit to the SEC and certain schools, and that's fine. Let's stick with the professional side, because that's where it's a little easier to compare. In MLS, people have said you need super clubs to take the league to another level, and it's exactly this reason. Look at the Copa del Rey this season, and it's a really weird Copa del Rey because all the favorites have been knocked out. You don't have Barcelona in it. You don't have Real Madrid in it. You don't have Valencia in it, I believe, at this point. It's all underdogs who advanced. Do you think it's going to get the same interest that it usually does? I don't. And it's not to say that you should force the top teams to be there and you shouldn't have the underdogs. No, it's not what I'm saying at all. It's good to have these stories pop up. But if it becomes the norm, does it hold that growth back? Does it hold the business side back? I think there's an argument that it does. Big teams draw big interest. When Real Madrid, Barcelona are not pushing for a title, interest in La Liga drops. Now, I'll be curious to see in the Premier League how, for years, it was a big four. And I guess begrudgingly, it expanded to a big six, with Tottenham and Manchester City pushing their way into that conversation. Well, we've talked about it on Soccer Over There a lot. You know, from a football perspective, is it going to remain as a big six that is always at the top of the table? Probably not. And a lot of times that's because that big six has honestly turned into a big two and a lesser four, because Manchester City and Liverpool are way above everybody else in terms of what they can spend and what they're doing right now. Now, can they maintain it? We'll have to see. Liverpool has the history to think that they would be. Manchester City, I don't know. Pep Guardiola leaves. They have a downturn in results. Are they going to remain in that spot? I don't know. But this is an interesting discussion when you take it to the MLS side. Does MLS benefit across the board from more teams having a chance to win win the MLS Cup? I think it does. Would it benefit more if it was a smaller number of teams in big markets that were competing on a regular basis? I don't necessarily disagree with that. Do they have to win every tournament? No, I don't think they do. But if your Los Angeles teams are good, that's a good thing for the league. Doesn't mean they always have to win, but if they're competing and they're in that chase, that's good. When your MLS Cup playoffs, when the conference finals would be Colorado and San Jose in the West, and let's say Cincinnati and Columbus in the East, would that get as much interest from the overall soccer public in the United States as if it was LA and Seattle in the West and Atlanta and Miami in the East? I'm just pulling teams off the top of my head. I don't think it would. And can you mix in some teams to compete? I think we see that in the NFL a lot. You know, what drives the NFL conversation? It's the Patriots. Top teams. The Patriots, because they've established themselves as one of that team. So they weren't in the past. They've established themselves. They've changed the paradigm. Okay, they drive the conversation. The Cowboys drive the conversation, and they
even with mediocrity, even with mediocrity, the Cowboys have conversations.
They're like the Knicks. You know, they're a big team, and when they're competing, people freak out.
Yep. And when they're mediocre, people freak out just as much.
Yeah, in a different way, but yeah, they drive the conversation. But it goes that's not the point here, because when they're mediocre over an extended period of time, the Cowboys are an established brand. We take it to England. If Manchester City became mediocre over an extended period of time like the Cowboys have been, I don't think they remain the Cowboys.
No,
I think Liverpool
so
would, and they have. I think Manchester United is, and they still will. Tottenham, I think, would be at risk of that if they dropped out of the conversation of being a Big Six, competing for titles, getting to a Champions League final. They've kind of pushed their way into this conversation, but let's say they go through a run of seasons where they're 10th. Do they remain in that conversation? I don't know if they do.
Yeah. Arsenal and Chelsea, what about them?
Arsenal probably has more heritage than Chelsea in that regard, but I think Chelsea's probably done enough since Abramovich took over. Now, if he decided to pull funding and sell it and it's not funded the same way, maybe not. And that's what's interesting about MLS is it's such a different animal because MLS can benefit from the top teams competing for titles and being the teams that are driving the conversation, and I think it needs it to a certain extent. But they don't have to win every title, and maybe that's because of the acceptance of playoffs, that people understand, like, hey, you can be a top team like LAFC was last year, but you fall in the playoffs. Okay, that creates a narrative for the next season. All right, cool. But you can be a top team and have a chance to win even if you're not winning. Whereas in England, no, you got to win the thing.
Yep.
I don't know. It's a really interesting one. I think MLS benefits from, like Colorado benefits from having a chance to make the playoffs and get some excitement. You know, Dallas and Houston, which are not big teams in this league, they make the playoffs, they get some excitement. They probably would sell more tickets. They'd probably have a higher season ticket renewal. They might get some more sponsors because of it, because of that interest. Things can kick up from it. But if the playoffs are dominated year after year after year by the smaller teams, that hurts the league overall. It is a balancing act where the other teams in La Liga benefit from Real Madrid and Barcelona's dominance. They do. Would it be better if they weren't so dominant? I don't know if it would be. But you've got to have the balance, because if teams go into a season with no hope of winning anything, in MLS especially, where you don't have a century of history and generations of support, people are not going to show. And you've seen that with teams that attendance has dropped over a few years of not being strong. So in MLS, I think they need Leicester Cities and those kinds of situations far more than other leagues do. But that's not at the expense of big teams being big teams. I think they need that too. And it's a hard balancing act, and I think American sports, maybe playoffs, allow that to be an easier thing. But this is going to be an issue around the world, because in England we've seen it. Teams that have dropped out of competing for titles, Leeds United, Nottingham Forest, Middlesbrough, teams that fall down maybe struggle to operate on that lower scale. Maybe they're not built to operate on that lower scale. And you see teams that jump up that struggle to operate on a bigger scale. And I think in other countries it's probably even more exaggerated because they don't have the TV money pumped into it. So it's going to become an issue in other countries a lot faster than it would in MLS. MLS maybe needs more of the balancing act. Other countries, I don't know what the way forward is. I don't, because now you're not tied to supporting your local team because you don't see other soccer. Now you can stay home and watch a big game from Spain or a big game from Italy or a big game from Germany or big game in your own country, but involving two teams that are hours away. That dependency on seeing live soccer and being connected to the game by going to see your local team, no matter what scale they're on, that's not needed anymore. You can pick and choose. And people are picking big clubs because they draw your interest.
Daniel Price says, I agree having a handful of top teams that move the needle is imperative for success. However, it cannot be overwhelming. the big team that just never loses can also be detrimental. There has to be a balance.
There has to be a balance, but playoffs, I think, provide that balance. And this is something that, look, I don't think this is ever going to be part of the conversation in other leagues around the world, but it's something that benefits MLS in a huge way because it can give you both. It can give you an LAFC season like last year that captured everybody's attention, was talked about everywhere, and it was dominant. And they ultimately didn't win the big prize because the big prize is decided by the playoffs. It gives MLS the best of both worlds, which is really interesting. Other leagues are going to suffer because of the lack of playoffs. Because if you're 10th, you're 10th. If you're mid-table, you're mid-table. Now, sure, fighting off relegation will get some interest for you. That's great, but at what cost? You get relegated, then you might not come back. Because the gaps that are creating in other leagues around the world are becoming too big. And teams don't always accept operating on a lower scale and how long of a process it can be to adjust to that or to fight your way back and then grow into operating at a bigger scale. It's going to be fascinating what happens around the world in the game over the next couple of decades. Because you've got the big teams who are seeing the need of playing big teams more often. And in England, again, it's not as much of the discussion because of the TV revenues that come in there. It's okay to play league games because you're going to get a lot of money from it. But for a Barcelona, for a Juventus, for a Real Madrid, for a Bayern Munich, they might be really looking at it. Makes more business sense to play in an expanded Champions League, and that's a big conversation right now. Does the Champions League go to, instead of 6 group stage games, do you get to where it's 12, where it's 16 group stage games, and it's like a mini league that goes alongside your domestic league? And then the thing that the big clubs want as a trade-off is, well, they want guaranteed spots in that league. They don't want to lose those spots. Because then you're going to have to do that league on top of doing your domestic league. You're probably going to have 2 squads a lot of times. And you don't want to risk, if you have a bad domestic season, getting knocked out of the Champions League that you pushed to compete in, because that's where the money's at. It's going to look really different in 20 years, I think. And I don't know what that's going to be, because you have history that's going to fight it, but you got business that's going to fight it. MLS is in a different world, and I think playoffs gives you that opening to function in that different world, and honestly, in probably a more stable world long term.
Along those lines, Daniel asks, would the Premier League benefit from a playoff? I think it would make a great storyline.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it would. They won't do it, though. They won't do it. It's just not the way they function. And I don't think it would ever be accepted. Here, it's honestly second nature because of the way American sport has developed. I mean, even with the World Series going back over 100 years, it was a playoff. You know, other sports have always had a playoff structure. I mean, here it's expanding playoffs, like baseball wants to do, because they realize it's needed, and it does drive interest, and it does open up the door to other teams competing for a championship. It's going to be really interesting. I don't think the Premier League ever has a playoff structure. I don't.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think any of the major European domestic leagues ever have a playoff structure. The Champions League is essentially their playoff structure. And that's where they get that excitement. And any kind of a Super League, Champions League, European, Continental League, whatever you call it, anything like that is going to have a playoff structure because they see the value in it. And you created it with it because it was a cup to begin with. You're never going to have that playoff structure to decide a league champion in major leagues in Europe. They've just never worked that way. Some smaller leagues do, Leagues in other countries do. Leagues in Latin America have embraced playoffs. But in the top 5 leagues in Europe, I don't think it ever happens. Hold your thought for just a second, because that's a loud one too. 2 Atlanta United Academy players will represent the U.S. Under-17 national team at its first training camp of the 2020-2021 cycle. Efrain Morales and Caleb Wiley have been selected. It's a UEFA development tournament at St. George's Park in England. USA will play Spain on February 19th, England on February 21st, and Denmark on February 24th. These are all players who were born in 2004 representing the U.S. at the tournament. The team will be coached by Larry Sunderland. He's the director of player development at FC Cincinnati. Morales and Wiley are currently part of Atlanta United's U17s. Morales spent some time training at Manchester United. He's appeared in 8 matches this season in the U.S. Development Academy. Wiley's appeared in 12. So those are your 2 Atlanta United representatives as part of this U.S. U17 national team.
Tafka has come back in this morning. Linked to the article from NBC Sports Soccer, Tyler Adams out with a calf injury, set to miss this weekend's Bundesliga match against Werder Bremen and next week's Champions League game against Spurs. Tafka says this trend is becoming alarming.
Can't stay healthy, and I don't know why. Look, some athletes are just injury prone. It does happen. Bad luck happens too. I don't know what it is with Tyler Adams that is causing this. Don't know if his body maybe isn't built to play in a pressing system. Could be the case. Could just be bad luck. It is a little alarming. It absolutely is, because every time it feels like he starts to get going, another injury slows him down. And they appear to be more related than some athletes who just have bad luck. So I don't know. I don't know if he came back too soon. I'm not sure what's causing it, but yeah, it's something you got to be concerned with. And if you're Greg Berhalter, you definitely have to be concerned with it, because he's a player that you need. You need him in the national team, and you can't count on him because he's always injured. It's a problem.
Cassie comes in this morning. Now that I know John may not have seen my yellow card gif, I can clarify my laughing crying emoji was aimed at Goose for the play where he came out of the box at Leonis Negros only hours after we discussed his doing so in the Georgia Dome game with the United States. Happy he's our netminder, ready for more. #Thursday Thoughts.
Does anyone know what's going on here?
No, Bruce. Nobody knows what's going on here, because John's reading a tweet that nobody knows what it's talking about.
I was referencing something from last night, where apparently Kefsi gave Goose a yellow for coming out of the box. What?
He got a yellow card. Kefsi wasn't refereeing that match.
So he got a yellow?
Did you watch the match?
I did. I didn't see that.
Okay, let me.
I thought he got a yellow for the Sanchez collision in the 75th.
That was the yellow card he got. This is where I'm completely confused, because John reads tweets in a weird way sometimes.
No, I thought it was for something different, for like something outside the box that had to do with handling the ball, not necessarily for Sanchez and going after it. I thought it was something different.
Okay, I'm gonna try to translate for my co-host and the tweets that came in that were from last night and have now been re-referenced, and I'm confused, but I'm gonna try to make sense of it. I think KFC originally was making a link between Brad Gazan coming out of the 18 in the Gold Cup semifinal against Jamaica at the Georgia Dome, and as a handling offense that gave a free kick and ended up turning into a goal. In the one in Guadalajara on Tuesday night, the play was offside. I thought it was a bad yellow card because the play was offside. It was not really clear that it was being stopped, and I don't think the yellow card was being given, and this is where you'd love to have a conversation with the referee. I don't think the yellow card was being given for playing after the whistle. It felt like the yellow card was being given for the contact, which would have meant that if the player had not been offside, that it would have been a free kick in that spot. I don't think there's anything Brad Kazan could have done differently in playing that ball, because he went up for it and play hadn't stopped, and I don't think he went through the player. I don't think he did anything wrong. I was confused by the yellow, because I don't think he did anything wrong to get a yellow to begin with, and I don't think you could really fault him for playing if there was a whistle, because it wasn't clear that there was a whistle.
Well, what else is
I don't know
do?
What the yellow was actually for. It didn't make any sense.
Right. But yeah, going back to Kefsi's original tweet with the Tarjeta Amarilla gif, just keepers out of the box again. That's where that came from.
Okay, sometimes I need to look at these tweets too, so I know what's going on. Okay, I think I got it, Kefsi. I think we've got you. I think if not, then blame it on me this time.
Out of context, Nelson tweets. I think we probably need to add that.
No, we don't. Let's just not have them. How about that, please? Let's not do that. Let's try to provide context. Context is good, because sometimes people don't provide context and just pull things out of context and twist things around, and they get out of hand. So we will try not to be those people. We got a little bit to talk about. Rodolfo Pizarro with some woos at the Monterrey airport as he's headed to Miami. He told reporters in Monterrey that video calls with Beckham helped his decision to move to Inter Miami. Data Martino told him the level of MLS is similar to Liga MX. That's going to upset Max Bretos' crew in the LAFC video that they did. He believes that moving to Europe will be easier from MLS. Those are three powerful bullet points from Tom Marshall at Mexico World Cup on Twitter, from what Pizarro told reporters at the Monterrey airport on his way to Miami. I agree with the latter. I think it will be easier to move to Europe from MLS. I do think MLS is more known and respected in Europe than Liga MX is. I don't know if that's correct. I don't know if that should be the case, but I think it is the case. Tata saying the level of MLS is similar to Liga MX. I think that's the case. Are there some teams at the top that are better than others? Yep. If you compare Monterrey to the Colorado Rapids, yep. If you compare Atlanta United to who's at the bottom? Right now, Monterrey's been at the bottom, but small clubs.
Veracruz.
Well, Veracruz has disappeared. They don't exist anymore. Lobos Buap and clubs like that, or yo-yo clubs. And yeah, of course, then there's a difference. Comparing Atlanta United to Club America, well, Campeones Cup showed you that it's pretty similar. MLS clubs have to start beating Liga MX teams in CONCACAF Champions League. It is that simple. I think the level is similar, but it won't be viewed as similar across the board until you start beating these teams. Flat out, 100%. And it's, if David Beckham is the owner of a team, and we've talked about this, he's got a secret weapon to recruit players that some clubs just don't have. You get a call from Bex on FaceTime, and Bex wants to talk to you. That's kind of cool.
You're going to pick up the phone.
It's kind of cool. And some owners don't really have that kind of cachet. David Beckham does. So Pizarro going to Miami, this is a big shot across the bow of MLS and Liga MX. And I do think it helps both, because Liga MX needs more worldwide exposure. They can benefit from having a strong relationship from MLS. The overall market being MLS and Liga MX will benefit everybody. We've seen it benefit second-tier teams in MLS, and it's not, completely throwing shade at like a Colorado, at a Columbus, at a Vancouver, Sporting Kansas City, but the relationships with MLS and the growth of MLS have helped them bring in top talent. And now, not just the top MLS teams, but even teams a step down are competitive for bringing in top talent. You know, quality of life, just flat out money, consistency of money. MLS is a very compelling product right now for top players in Mexico. But on the field, the top clubs in Mexico are winning competitions over MLS teams. That's a fact. And MLS wants to change that. Liga MX wants to grow business-wise. They're learning things from MLS. MLS is learning things from Liga MX. It makes sense for the two to work together, and it's a unique thing in the world of soccer. And I do think both will ultimately benefit. I don't think there will be a overall combined league. But could there be a secondary competition where they play each other? Absolutely. One of the suggestions from the roundtable that LAFC posted I thought was really interesting. I don't love it because I love the history of like the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup. Copa MX Cup competition in Mexico doesn't have that history. Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup has more history at the professional level. It doesn't have a long history. That's absolutely true. But the suggestion was that you have a cup competition, basically a league's cup involving everybody. And that would replace the domestic cups. I don't think it could, but I do see a scenario where League's Cup is expanded, it involves everybody, and it becomes a big deal. The way it becomes a big deal, put a fat check at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Get a big sponsor to put a fat check that goes to the winning team, and the players get the overwhelming majority of that fat check, and then that tournament becomes a big deal. And if you want to make it a single knockout, random blind draw, and Atlanta United could be drawn with Chiapas or Tijuana, and you know Monterrey could be drawn going to Colorado, cool. Do it, and let's make it a big thing.
Bartimus Prime has come in this morning and has linked to the Matt Pence interview with Bruce Arena on The Athletic. And if you do not have your subscription to The Athletic, both of us are there. A lot of our friends are there. And Grant Wall actually came out and admitted that The Athletic has been crushing it when it comes to soccer recently. So that was good to hear from him. But Bart says, his Thursday thought, as much as we bagged on Klinsmann earlier this week, it's time to flame Bruce for his disconnect with the reality of what happened in 2017 and how he lost 2 matches as well, one at home and one away. He also played scared in Panama and Honduras.
Oh yeah, I've blasted Bruce for his tactics. Klinsmann dug a hole. Bruce got the team out of the hole. At least got both hands outside of the hole, and you were looking around, and then forgot to actually secure the footing, and they fell back in the hole. No, they did not qualify ultimately because of horrendous tactics in Trinidad. Forget the rest of the mistakes. All you had to do was get a result in Trinidad against a team that was eliminated and a bad team, and a team that wasn't even absolute first choice. And you went down there with awful tactics. You went down there with an extreme amount of arrogance that you didn't need to rotate your squad. You didn't need to change your tactics, and you got beat for it, and that cost the team the World Cup. That's on Bruce. That's 100% on Bruce. You got into the situation because of everything that had happened under Klinsmann in that cycle. But, yeah, Bruce got you out of the hole and then lost the footing because of just dumbness. So I'm with it. I think part of the arrogance from Bruce is because he's still working and still trying to show that he's a top coach. And he did very well with New England last season. Very, very well. I'm not going to take that away from him. I read his book. It felt like he was definitely trying to change the narrative. Didn't really buy it. The book was interesting for some of the stuff, the older stuff, and some of the earlier parts of his run. I don't buy that. Oh, it just happens. No big deal. It is a big deal, and it was a big deal because of his tactics. So I'm with that. Klinsmann's issues were bigger for me, so I have more animosity there. But no, Bruce Arena cost the U.S. a World Cup, and he cost it by not changing a lineup from a game on a Friday night in Orlando to a Tuesday in Trinidad, to the arrogance of going down there and making fun of the field, making fun of the rain, not saying, oh, wait a minute, this game is just going to be bombing it back and forth. Maybe I need another holding midfielder in there to help win a second ball. Maybe a second ball might actually be important in this. Maybe I shouldn't play the same guys who played in Orlando a few days before in high humidity, playing in high humidity again. Maybe I should actually bring in some fresh legs. Maybe I should actually prepare to be pretty defensive here and just secure the bag. I don't need to do that. And that's why they didn't play in 2018. That part's absolutely on Bruce. Shouldn't have been in the situation to begin with. That part's on Jurgen. But yeah, Bruce dropped points along the way, made it even more difficult. But Trinidad game should have been no problem. No problem to survive that, and that is 100% on Bruce.
A couple of folks have chimed in on our recline function discussion this morning.
Oh, okay.
Tofka says maybe the planes we're on are different because the recline function is basically 2 inches difference without intermediate adjustable levels. Shrug shoulders emoji.
Some of them are different. Some planes are different, I've noticed. I mean, some, it'll be just a little bit of a recline. That's fine. Some, It's like, whoa.
It's like 4 inches, 5.
Yeah, some, it's like, whoa,
they're in your lap.
Almost in my lap, and that's not cool. So, yeah, that's probably a difference between planes. That's fair.
And Tofka says, yeah, I've had people recline. I'm a 6-footer, and I don't even notice the difference.
Sometimes, but I guess that's a different planes.
And Resurgence says, I'm the same as you. Never noticed it when someone in front of me reclines. People out here trying to be offended.
Yeah, I mean, some people are looking for a reason to get offended. We all know this, but I'm definitely not punching somebody in the back. If it's one of those where it is a large amount of reclining and it is very uncomfortable, yes, I might sit with my knees up a little bit higher just to try to create space for myself. That's about it. I'm not going to start a scene on a plane. Life really ain't worth that.
The Colonel and Tofka are in on the Kansas discussion that we had this morning about multi-purpose, multi-use areas.
Yes, the Colonel has laughed because I did not notice the speedway next to it. I blamed it on being full of barbecue and not paying attention.
Oh, wow. Tofka says,
we ate barbecue before the game. I wasn't paying attention to what was around the stadium. I did see the giant furniture mart, I think, across the street from the stadium. It was like the Nebraska Furniture Mart, and it was ridiculously huge, and I guess that's a big deal.
I remember.
Wasn't looking at the speedway or the details around it, and then we went back into the city after the game because that's where we were staying. So,
Tofka says, I'm not a race fan, sorry, but unless you can use the track as additional parking, I think it's a waste of space. I know that's not feasible, but sure, let's blow acres of prime real estate for something that's empty 363 days out of the year.
Well, it's not that, and that's not really fair to the project because the speedway exists. It's there. You're not taking acres away, and you're trying to make it more useful by upgrading it and all that. So you're not trying to build it from scratch and take things away, which, okay, you're trying to make better use of something that's already there. Okay. It's just the way the process has gone down that I have a problem with. If the previous administration had paired things together, and if this mayor, when they came in and they wanted to really get this project done, if they had done it a better way, okay. It really feels like they are trying to take away from the approved project for a project that doesn't even have a proposal on the table yet. And a project that a lot of the pitch about, well, we need to bring in more money for the city and we can't spend as much and blah, blah, blah. This project seems like it will require spending by the city. Mm-hmm. We don't know because there's no proposal on the table. So the whole argument about, well, we don't have the money to do all these things, you're probably, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm cynical about it, you're probably about to create something where you're going to spend more money for something that I think has less impact.
That would be my thoughts too.
That's what it seems like.
The Colonel, in discussing Kansas City, he says the true economic impact, the point you haven't mentioned, is the explosion of hotels, retail shops, restaurants, nightlife, including a casino that have happened out of a Kansas wheat field over a period of several years.
Well, the casino's based at the Speedway. And would the casino, would it have happened otherwise? Probably not. But it drives business probably more than the Speedway does. I don't know that for sure, but I'm just assuming because it's not limited to 5 events a year. So I would hope that it would.
Yeah, 2 weekends, yeah.
What I wonder, the Speedway started this in that area because it was first. The soccer stadium came 10 years later. Right now, the Speedway at the fairgrounds isn't driving anything. Would a improved one drive more? Would it create those situations? I don't know if it would, because I don't know what the parameters would be, and I don't know, honestly, if it would get top races. It wouldn't get 2 races a year, that's for sure. There's no way Nashville would get 2, because Atlanta only has 1 race now a year, right?
Yeah, again,
and
it was...
used to have 2.
Yeah, and it would go from... You had one in October toward the end of it all, and then you had the one in March, and then the late race was taken away for other properties that are tied to the same ownership group. And so it's all about SMI and ISC controlling dates in their arenas where they can sit there and dictate what's going on.
Oh, that's good, but you're not going to get 2 races at a brand new small track.
Yeah. At a 30,000, unless you're dealing with secondary series and
and that's
trucks.
not going to be an economic driver. I'm comparing it to let's keep context. We're comparing it to Kansas, which is a 48,000 seat track that has a playoff race and a regular race plus a race in each of the other circuits. So 5 races total. Nashville's not going to get a playoff race. There's too many others. Atlanta would get a playoff race before Nashville would. So you're going to get 4 races max. Is that going to be enough on its own to drive hotel development, all the other things around it? The soccer stadium is driving other things around it. That was already part of this. Adding the raceway to it, does it enhance it? Does it go up further? I don't know if it does.
I don't think so.
It's a different conversation than Kansas, because Kansas, the Speedway sparked everything. You probably wouldn't have had the soccer stadium built there if the Speedway hadn't started it. Here, the soccer stadium's already approved. You're trying to piggyback a Speedway on it that won't have the same impact that Kansas does, because the fairgrounds have been the fairgrounds for a long time. So I don't think it enhances what has already been approved to be built in a huge dramatic way. Does a hotel property say, well, now maybe we'll build something because you're going to have these races there? Maybe. I don't know. But I think that process is probably already starting because of the soccer stadium that was approved that would bring more dates, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's a little bit different just because of the order of how things has gone, but it could have been done in a comfortable way that everybody would have won. It's the way the mayor's gone about it that has created a lot of these problems. And there still just isn't a proposal on the table about the racetrack. It's a lot of guessing, and the fact that the mayor was at the state capitol trying to find money for it really makes you think that there's going to be more public money going in to do that racetrack than there is on the soccer side. And that goes against everything the mayor's pitched about trying to save money. So it's you hate to be cynical about these things, but you really wonder what is going on behind the scenes to drive this. Because you're risking a lot, mainly lawsuits and the trust of business doing business with the city. You're risking a lot for something that doesn't feel like it is going to bring a major return back the other way that you weren't already going to start to see because of the stadium being built. you have to wonder what's going on behind the scenes.
And Daniel's come in this morning. He says, this entire wanting a new speedway deal for a struggling NASCAR seems very risky. If it was a for sure bet that NASCAR would bounce back from its current slump, it makes sense. But I think NASCAR is in a worrying decline with no way out yet.
Yeah, and that's the other element of it is when the Kansas Speedway was built in 2001, NASCAR was in a very, very different place. Mm-hmm. And now it's not. So I don't know. I still think it probably could have been done, and it makes sense to utilize something that's already there. Sure, I get it. Nashville would be a good city for NASCAR. Obvious, I get it. But you have something that's already approved, and you're just risking so much for an uncertain return. And it looks like to spend money to get an uncertain return and potentially create a lawsuit and all this other stuff that's going on. It just... If you wanted to do both, even with Mayor Cooper coming in after things had been approved, he could have went about it in such a better way that maybe would have had a better result. Now he's created this drama that is not good for anybody.
Sean Vergara this morning, who has changed his name back to Sean Vergara from Quick Trigger Penso.
Okay.
Projected lineup for CCL.
It's a little hard because we don't know everything about injuries with Miles Robinson, about visa situations. Mulroney is a question mark. Frank DeBoer, we talked about it yesterday, said that Josetu is not going to play in this. I mean, Avisa could show up, but if you're planning, I think you have to plan to not have him because it's uncertain. Robinson, you just don't know yet, and maybe you'll know more later today or tomorrow. So let's assume the worst. Let's assume that you're missing everybody that's a question mark. I think your lineup looks like this. Let me think as we're going through it. Yeah, I think it's George Campbell, Franco Escobar on either side of Fernando Meza. I think that's your three center backs. I think it's Anton Walks on the left. I think it's Brooks Lennon on the right. I think it's Emerson Hindman and Eric Remedi in the middle. And your front three with Ezequiel Barco, Pity Martinez, and Joseph Martinez. That would be the lineup if you're missing Miles, if you're missing Josetu, if you're missing Mulroney. Potential variations. Man, I just don't know if you really have one with no Bello and no Castillo. You know, you could see Walks move into the middle, but then you don't really have an obvious solution on the left without Mulroney either. So I think your best group would be that. If you wanted to change the shape, you still don't really solve the problem at left back with the injuries. So if you wanted to get Walks at center back instead of Campbell, for example, which I would understand the desire to do that. You don't really have a left back because I'm not convinced by Campbell or Mo Adams in that spot. I think you're better off to have Campbell with two center backs with him and Walks as the left wing back. I think that gives you the most security. And I think from what we've seen of Jeff Larentowicz so far in the preseason, I don't know if it would be better to have him at center back as opposed to Campbell. It could be. And you've got time to see if Larentowicz gets a little more up to speed because it's been a step slow so far in preseason. That would give you more security in terms of experience, for sure. And it's a possibility because then he would have cover from Meza and Escobar. And he would have the experience to get through a game like this. So you could go in that direction. I think Remedi has been maybe the best of the central midfielders in preseason. I would like to see Mo Adams get that opportunity, but I don't think he's going to get it. I think it's Remedi and Hindman in this case. And my guess would be Campbell at center back. It could be Larentowicz. It could be Walks, but I think Walks is even less likely because you don't have anybody else on the left that fits. So worst case scenario, that's what I lean to, is Walks across the back if you're going to talk about it in a sense of five. Walks on the left, Campbell, Meza, Escobar, Lennon. That's your center backs and your wing backs. Remedi, Hindman, Barco, Pitti, Joseph. That would be my
Sean
guess
also,
at this stage.
Yeah, because I was going to ask about Mo Adams in the midfield, and you addressed that. So
I'd like to see it. I don't know if he would get ahead of Remedi at this point. I think Eric's had a good preseason, and he would deserve the opportunity.
So then Sean follows up by asking, do you think not having VAR in Champions League could cause some problems?
Oh, it probably will. Welcome to referees. I mean, nobody wants VAR until you need VAR. And when you have referees that can be dodgy at some points, you'd like to have VAR to help clean it up. Well, you're not going to have that. So something will happen. It always does. And then everybody will want VAR. But then when you get into MLS, something will happen and VAR will upset people, and then you don't want VAR. So VAR helps, and I think you would like to have VAR in all competitions going forward. And CONCACAF needs to get on this and get it figured out.
Drew Gano this morning votes for expanding Campeones Cup to a playoff with the top 4 teams from each league. It seems like a simple way of bringing the 2 leagues closer.
I think it's the other way around. I think ultimately Campeones Cup goes away and League Cup becomes the big thing, which would be expanded. So I think it's going to go that way. If Campeones Cup continues, I don't think it expands, but I think it might fall in a different part of the calendar and truly become that Super Cup kind of feel, where it's like a kickoff thing as opposed to a mid-season or late season thing for MLS. If you could do it, and CONCACAF complicates it, and that's why you can't really do it in a true kickoff sense. I think you have to do it in the summer to get the most out of it. Do it. I think the summer would be better than where it was in the calendar this past year, and you'd basically be doing it after Mexico's Campeón de Campeones match, the 2 champions, the Apertura and the Clausura champions playing. You'd do it after that and before the it'd be the Apertura season starts in Liga MX. So it'd be earlier in the calendar, it'd be right around the All-Star break, honestly, and maybe it's the game that kind of kicks off the All-Star week. If you can get it in a perfect world, and this is, moving a lot of parts around to make this thing work, and this is why it probably won't happen. If you can move the All-Star game to a weekend to maximize the impact of it, do it on a Saturday or Sunday night, and if you had the Campeones Cup match on the Wednesday beforehand, so and especially if you continue with the format of MLS versus Liga MX, which I would love to see them continue with, then you do Campeones Cup the Wednesday before. You have all the other stuff we've talked about, like a Legends game and skills competitions and all that kind of fun stuff in the build-up. And then you have the All-Star game on a Saturday night, and you do it in late July, where there's really not much going on in terms of other things to compete with. And you get that game on Univision and on Fox or ABC. That could be a pretty big, compelling property. And you include the Campeones Cup as part of your All-Star break. There you go. Don Garber, I will take a thank you.
Problem fixed.
Yes. I take a check if it works out.
And last one in the barn this morning comes from Daniel and discussing, going back to the article from The Independent. He says, storylines created through the playoff structure here in MLS drives interest. I think it really helps parity throughout the league. It makes every team relevant.
Okay. Steve Cavendish, sorry, Daniel. Steve Cavendish in Nashville. Breaking. There's a deal to begin work on the soccer stadium for Nashville SC. Mayor Cooper and team owner John Ingram will make an announcement this morning. The team keeps 8C, that parcel, will look at ways to widen the space between buildings to create a plaza. The deal is substantially the one that was on the table a few weeks ago when the parties were close to announcing an agreement. Cooper has been unable to put together a larger Speedway site deal in the intervening few weeks, and the team mounted a public pressure campaign. Good job, Mayor Cooper.
Uh-huh.
Good job.
Can you dig it?
I can dig it, Dolomite. That's what happens when you're going around chasing stuff and you're potentially upsetting people. And, yeah. So it's pretty much what was already there, and now it's going to happen. So good for Nashville SC. Glad this thing is finally getting done. Man. Thanks, Jacob. Jacob was about to share it with us, but we caught it. So appreciate it. Thanks for looking out for us. But yes, got it. This is good. This is very good for Nashville. I'm very happy for Nashville SC. And just come on, work together, people. Get the Speedway thing going. Bring something in there. That's good. Just do it in the right way.
If you've got cars going same speed in different lanes of traffic, but you're all moving forward, you don't have a traffic jam. Last time I checked. Just be upfront and open and honest about what you're looking to do from the beginning, instead of all of this back door, turning your back, hey, look at this kind of stuff. But no, could not be happier for Nashville SC and the soccer community and in all of Tennessee, really, considering how much the draw is from Northern Alabama and from Tennessee in general. But yeah, thank goodness this is going down.
Yes, you will get a lot more done this way. So good on Steve Cavendish for dropping the Bomba de Cavendish.
Bomba de Cavendish.
Yeah, I don't think that one's going to stick. Sorry, Steve.
It was a thought.
Yeah,
weird.
Probably not.
But anything else you want to talk about before we go? Because we're caught up on the Twitters.
A couple things we haven't talked about yet. Austin FC, who's starting next year, they've got their shirt sponsor done. It is Yeti. They will have a giant Yeti across the front of their shirt. Not the animal, just the word. It's the Ice Chest and Tumbler maker that's based in Austin. And this is not a small deal at all either. They're saying that it will be among the top few deals in the league, upwards of $4 million annually to have Yeti across the front of the Austin FC kits.
We're going to call the stadium the Cooler.
It's not the stadium, John. It's the kits.
But with Yeti as a sponsor, maybe you
It's
call
not the stadium. It's not the Yeti Stadium. It is not the Estadio Yeti. I think the stadium already has a sponsor.
Well, maybe the supporters section, you call it the Cooler?
No, because you're not doing the... No. Stop. I think the stadium's like a healthcare sponsor, if I'm not mistaken. I think the stadium has a sponsor. I know the training facility does, and I'm pretty sure that's healthcare. I thought that was tied into the stadium, but maybe not. Maybe they're still going to sell that. So we will see what the stadium can be called, nicknamed. But no, you're probably going to call something about the holding midfielder. The number 6 would be the Cooler or something. Call him Dalton or whatever, and we can take the Cooler thing from the Yeti and throw it over to Roadhouse, and we're good to go.
The name's Dalton.
One of the greatest movies ever. One of the most watchable movies ever. Even the 3 different horrible edited versions that are out there that pull different things out of it.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, is that you have to watch the original unedited version when Dalton is killing people on the lakeside in all these battles. The way
and bad guys are saying horrible, horrible things that are pulled out of some edited versions, most edited
A polar bear fell on me.
That's not what the guy said that got pulled out of the edited version, I can tell you that much.
No.
If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Yes, if there's anything that Austin FC can do to tie in Roadhouse to their branding, I am all in with this.
Be awesome.
Yes. One report out of Argentina, Minnesota has been chasing central midfielder Emmanuel Reynoso, and according to Cesar Luis Merlo, who is a trusted source in Argentina, Boca have received a formal offer from Minnesota. They've been negotiating for over a month. If Minnesota hits the number that Boca wants, they're willing to sell. I don't think they've hit that number just yet. And there's some reports that the offer has come up a little short, so we'll see if that changes. Minnesota trying to add another piece. we shall see. Now, one other thing that has come up, CONCACAF Champions League next week. We know that Atlanta and LAFC play at the same time. I kind of expected that if Fox did not have both FS1 and FS2 available for this, that LAFC would get whatever channel they have available because they're playing a more appealing opponent. It's true. So Atlanta United's match in Motagua is bumped to Fox Soccer Plus and 2DN Extra 1. The second leg will be on FS1 and 2DN live from Kennesaw. So we will have both on 92.9 The Game, so you'll be able to listen to full pre- and post coverage for both legs on 92.9 The Game, on radio.com app, on the Atlanta United app, and you might have to sync us up. 2DN Extra 1, if you have 2DN on your cable system, you can watch that via stream, and it's generally a good stream. I've watched some of the Liga MX games where they have English commentary. They'll put it on Extra 1, and it's good. It's good quality stream. So the only thing that I wish 2DN had was the better way to port it to the TV. They don't have an app for Amazon. I'm an Amazon Fire TV guy, so it's kind of awkward to make it work that way. I think if you have Fubo TV and probably some other streaming services, they throw those 2DN extra channels in as normal channels. I want to say Xfinity might have that. So you might actually benefit from that, John, if you can figure out how to make it work, which is questionable.
Yeah, that is the operative moment there. I mean, usually what I do is on a daily basis, I will sit there and go, show me soccer, and it will give me all of the different channels and all the different elements for it. So
you might need to do some things to add the 2DN extra channels. So I don't know if your remote will talk to you in that way. We'll have to find out.
No, not at the moment. But
Fox Soccer Plus, I know you could add, and it gets on Uverse as well, but it is kind of a steep cost for what they offer these days. So you might see some temporary editions of Fox Soccer Plus in the Atlanta area. You will also see viewing parties for it. I know the Brewhouse Cafe will have it. They have any channel you could possibly want to watch a soccer game on one of their 9,912 televisions. So go to the Brewhouse Cafe if you can't figure out how to watch it. Otherwise, you can listen to us on 92.9 The Game. But that second leg, FS1 and 2DN live from Kennesaw the next week, if you're not going to be in the building at Fifth Third Bank.
Add Fox Soccer Plus, add 2DN.
Well, you can pick one. You don't have to do both. Pick one.
No, but
you're not going to watch it on two channels.
No, but if I want to watch other things at other times, you add them both now. You don't have to worry about it later.
Okay. Well, good luck. Yes, Teisei's actually updated the thing we just talked about with Reynoso, that the bid has been rejected from Minnesota, but they're not done yet. So that could still happen, potentially. Reynoso, goal and 3 assists in 14 matches in the current Superliga season. And that Superliga season, and this is where it gets weird for Argentine teams, it's about to come to a conclusion. There's 4 more weeks in it. Then there's a little bit of a gap before you start this mini league with the Copa de la Superliga that different teams take different ways. Some teams take it very seriously. This one's a different format than it was last time, but some teams didn't put a whole lot into it. So a team like Boca might say, you know what, we're at a point in the league, we can sell him, and the window would still be open by the time the Argentine league closes. We'll sell him after the Superliga season ends, and then you can have him and you'll get him at the end of March. Okay. That might work. So keep an eye on moves like that out of Argentina this year because of the way their league is. You could get some weird things going on. Inter Miami has added a Colombian youth international center back to their roster on loan, Andres Reyes. So they have added center back depth, and they should be making their announcement about Pizarro probably any time now. It's already been reported everywhere. Reyes is year-long loan, option to buy. He's coming over from Atlético Nacional in the first division, and he's also a Colombian youth international. So all kinds of things tomorrow on the show. We will start to go kind of deep dive in CONCACAF Champions League, as 5 MLS teams will start playing in the competition next week. We will get you ready for Saturday, where we hope to see you at our kickoff event, Wild Heaven West End, from 10 to 2. Kelly Francis will be hanging out with us. Jarrett Smith might be hanging out with us. Nick Alifi might be hanging out with us. Lots of folks are going to be hanging out with us. All of the supporters groups that are officially recognized by Atlanta United will be on hand. We're going to have a roundtable discussion with reps from each of the groups. Lots of talk. We'll be taking a bunch of questions. We'll also be available just to hang out and chat and have a beer or two. This El Jefe has got my attention. It is a Honduran-influenced Hefeweizen. It's a Honduran fruit that is mixed in with the Hefeweizen. It's a pretty cool project that Wild Heaven does, where they'll do these small batch, unique kinds of beers, and they release them on a regular basis. They did this one in conjunction with us. And they actually canned it, too, so you can take some home, which is very cool, but limited quantities on that. Fairly limited quantities on our hats and our scarves and our beanies that are still available, and we'll have them for you on Saturday. I've already got a couple that have been reserved for Saturday. If you want to reserve one for Saturday, hit me up. Send me a message, and I will take care of that for you. It's going to be a busy next couple of weeks as CONCACAF gets started. We'll try to set the table for all of that later this week. Tomorrow's show will be very CONCACAF driven as we get ready for it.
And the release has officially come from Nashville SC on what's going on with the stadium.
Good.
Under the terms of the revised deal, the team has agreed to fund 100% of stadium construction with private dollars through cash investment, stadium lease payments, and revenues generated at the stadium by attendees of events. The parties have agreed to a statement of principles, including open space between the soccer stadium and the historic Speedway. Metro has agreed to begin the demolition process immediately.
Yeah, Cooper said that I'm so glad we've reached a better deal for Nashville. I'm grateful to Nashville Soccer Holdings and John Ingram for understanding our city's financial realities and agreeing to pay up to $54 million in additional costs. So $19 million in infrastructure around it. That was one thing that Ingram, I think, offered very quickly. And then the team will assume Metro's obligation to pay up to $35 million toward lease payments. So, and then working together on this open plaza that will help multiple things at the fairgrounds. So Nashville's going to be okay, y'all.
Woohoo!
That's a good thing. It's a very good thing.
Yes.
So, rest of the day for me, I've got stoppage time at 2 o'clock over at the 92.9 The Game studios, facebook.com/929 The Game. We'll get into the whiteboard, we'll get into tactics, we'll get into potential lineups, any other news that happens between now and then. We'll talk about it on stoppage time. Myself, Mike Conti, Jimmy Vance will be there with you. You can send us your questions there. Then tonight, I'm going to sit in with Doc Sock, John Chuckery, for an hour. And it's also a special hour of the show. It's from 10 to 11. It is the Brown Liquor Music Hour, which I'm down with. I'm kind of excited about this, by the way. So we'll have some good tunes for you. We'll talk a lot of soccer on the last hour of the John Chuckery Show tonight on 92.9 The Game, radio.com app as well, 10 to 11 this evening. I'm looking forward to hanging out with Chuckery. We might talk a little wrestling, too, because Chuckery...
I was going to say now,
into the wrestling.
Get Chuckery to cut a promo for you.
It might do that. We might have to make this happen. But we'll definitely be talking a lot of Atlanta United, a lot of CONCACAF, a lot of stuff. So 2 o'clock stoppage time, facebook.com/929 The Game. 10 o'clock with John Chuckery, radio.com, and 92.9 on your FM dial. But right now it's lunchtime. So much plati, y'all.
Much plati.